Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back. It is December 2nd. This is episode 154 of the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Don Harris, Chuck McIntyre, Matt Roy. What's going on, guys?
Hello, Matthew.
Happy post-Thanksgiving.
Everybody have a good Thanksgiving? I
Yes.
think I've seen you since you went on your little vacation. How was your Thanksgiving there, Don?
It was great. My son Grant and his wife Ellie came in from Phoenix, brought their big dog, and everybody was here.
Big dog.
We all had Thanksgiving with my brothers. My mom and dad got to come, and it was wonderful. See all the family. It was a great time.
Very nice. Chuck?
We did too. My daughter and my new son-in-law had Thanksgiving at their house, and my daughter's mother-in-law, nice woman, great family, came down to help prepare, and man, we ate like kings.
Yeah.
And it was outstanding, and then we headed to College Station.
Yeah, we're going to get into that here in a little bit. How was College Station, though? Just
It was great. The whole environment was outstanding. I mean, nobody throws a party like an Aggie party. I mean, it was really, really a lot of fun, and I think if we're all being fair, the best team won.
I think that we can all agree
fair
on
statement.
that one. Speaking of the Thanksgiving food, the food that you brought me was absolutely delicious.
Good to hear.
It was wonderful. I'm going to clean your Tupperware and give it back to you. But it was so
Give
good.
it the old tongue treatment.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
I've got two fairly new daughters-in-law, over the last 3 or 4 years, and they both cook, and they're chipping in now. And Ellie's green beans were just off the chain.
These are new.
Green bean casserole or just green beans?
Huh?
These are new to the Thanksgiving mix.
These
are new to the Thanksgiving mix.
Yeah, things are new to the Thanksgiving mix, including, I know you don't want all the details, but the green beans she makes with a pound of bacon.
How do you mess up anything with a pound of bacon?
Right? And she leaves all the fat. She leaves all the fat in the pan after she fries the bacon, takes the bacon out, puts the green beans in all the fat with 5 cloves of garlic, and then she chops up the bacon and adds it back in there. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, right? When your family starts expanding, you start to get to experience
New recipes.
what they like,
Yeah.
what they grew up with, and so that was cool too. So shout out to
Yeah.
Leah, Emily, and of course my wife Melissa made Stuffnik. Was outstanding.
Oh, yeah. How would that go? I
First-
talked about it with my family.
Yeah, first thing to go. It's always the first thing to go.
What is it? What did you say?
Stuffnik.
What is Stuffnik?
Oh, you didn't hear about this last time?
So it's stuffing, but it's got grated Italian sausage in it, and you throw some gravy on there, and you could go and we did for days with that.
That sounds.
It's the first thing to go, though. The leftover Tupperware bowls,
Gone.
that's the first thing that goes.
Yeah, my brother's jalapeno cornbread, too, was
Nice.
wow.
All right. Well, that's enough food talk for the day. I hope everyone had a happy and healthy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, food for thought.
Let's get back to literally food for thought. Let's get back to some sports here. We got UTSA ended their season at 6-6. I think that was just about as good as they could have done with the injuries and everything that could have happened. So we'll talk about the future. Plus, Don sat down with Coach Traylor last night on Sports Sunday. Talked about a wide-ranging plethora of topics, this including the revenue sharing aspect of everything. So we'll hear from Coach Traylor here in a little bit. Plus, the Spurs are now 11-9. Beat the Kings last night. Looked pretty good doing it at times. Wemby had a triple-double and all that. So we'll get into the Spurs and maybe if they keep trending in this direction, if they should make some moves before the trade deadline, accelerate the timeline a little bit. We'll get into that. Plus, Chuck alluded to it already. College Station was the
Epicenter.
Yeah, the epicenter of the sports world. It's a good word for it. It was a heck of a game that the Longhorns tried to give away multiple times, but just couldn't end up doing it. And that the Aggies really just couldn't get going on offense. So we'll get into that as well. And if the Longhorns can still get into the CFP, even if they lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game. So we'll get into all that right now. No trivia today. Skip that. Save Chuck the headache on that one. So we'll go right into UTSA. Or actually, excuse me, we'll go right into the Spurs here. So the way I did this rundown is kind of messed up. Anyway, so we'll get right into the Spurs. They beat the Kings 127-125.
Real fast.
What's
I've got a random trivia question for you guys,
what's
just because I had one last night on Sports Sunday. Who's the last running back to run for over 200 yards in the Texas A&M rivalry?
Ricky Williams.
Cyrus Gray, Texas A&M, 2010.
Who knew?
223 yards. Not me.
Shout out Cyrus Gray.
Yeah.
Shout out. All right, see, trivia anyway.
There you go. You got it.
Anyway, the Spurs won last night, 127-125. They've now won 5 of their last 6. Wemby went for a triple-double. They hit a franchise record 23 three-pointers last night, and they shot 50%, so 23 for 46, so that was pretty good. They had a really bad first quarter defensively. The rest of the game defensively looked pretty solid. What were your takeaways from last night's game, guys?
Again, my takeaway continues to be with this team is when you shoot 23 of 46 from 3 and set a franchise record for three-pointers made and you only win by 2, that tells you that you didn't play great in other areas. And, you know, I'm not going to go hunting for things to criticize Wemby or the Spurs about, but I do think in this new NBA, every team seems to have, every time we turn on the TV and watch the Spurs, the opponent seems to have 4 young guys that are just snipers from 3. And the Spurs seem to have that at times. Devin was good last night from 3. Wemby was 5 of 9. Keldon hit big threes. CP3 hit big threes. Champagny was okay. If they can continue to do that, fine. But I still think they, with all of their depth and their talent, when you talk about Jeremy, Keldon, Julian, Devin, all those wings, Castle, I do think they could entertain a trade of one of those guys for a specialist. You know, the Bertans, McDermott, Connect type of three-point shooter.
Chuck?
I mean, I think they've made a significant turn, right, compared to what we saw last year. I mean, a lot of what we saw last night, to me, looks like basketball finally, right? And I don't know. I mean, you know, the thought you threw that out there, should they make a draft, or should they make a trade before the deadline? You know, I never really even considered that. You know, maybe that's something they need to do, but I don't know. I mean, it's like, I think right now, to me, it's who's earned the right to play the most minutes, right? And I think they're still trying to figure that out, right? Last night,
sure.
Bassey was the first guy up, and I don't know that he played great last night, so maybe you ride the hot hand there, whether it's he or
Collins
or Zach Collins.
He's been buried.
So,
yeah, I think that he's taking a back seat now to Charles Bassey.
You know, I just like what I see, right? It seems like it's a different guy every possession. It doesn't have to be one guy doing the yeoman's work on the offensive end. The ball is moving. Doesn't always look great, but there's an effort there, I think, that we have not seen before. And even if it's moving the ball and then everybody's got a wide open 3, I mean, the fact that they made that many threes last night, that's pretty damn good, considering it wasn't that long ago we were talking about this is a team that can't shoot.
Yeah, I mean, literally the first couple of games of the season, we were like, what the hell is going on? Why are they keep taking all these threes and they're missing
And they're
three-quarters of
streaky.
them?
They're streaky. They have good games where everybody shoots pretty well from 3, and they have games where they go 5 of 24.
Yeah, I mean, Steph shot really well last night, too. Steph Castle.
Yeah.
He shot pretty well.
And he didn't have a good game other than shooting. He was really bad at times. That was one of his roughest games.
Yeah.
And Wemby, too. Wemby really struggled in the first half and made a lot of bad turnovers. But when they lock in and play defense, and that's what's going to be good when they get Jeremy back. Jeremy, if he doesn't sabotage them offensively, does a great job on defense.
And Jeremy's ahead of schedule with his thumb, too. So.
Yeah, he hustles, he's physical, and he'll give him that edge. Because last night was a lot of Matador D in that first quarter.
Why does it just seem like there's full quarters where this team just doesn't care effort-wise? Like their effort or they get like sad or down on themselves after committing a turnover and don't run back on defense. Like why does it seem like that all the time?
It's human nature.
Because it was
man.
like that last year too, and it was like that for longer last year. They would do that for full games last year. Now it's just like a quarter here, a quarter there. It almost seems like they take it off.
Yeah, Mitch Johnson pointed that out last night too, and I think he was directing his words towards Victor. You know, there's certain plays, certain possessions where, you know, there was a play you and I were watching last night. Ball's moving, everything looks good. Boom, somebody throws a turnover. He instantly drops his shoulders, you know, his head drops down, and then he's slow to get back on defense. But if you can have less of that for all of them, not just Victor, and you're playing like every possession is the last possession you're going to get on the floor. And Mitch talked about that last night too, where we don't need anybody saving themselves for the fourth quarter. We're dispersing the minutes enough. We've got a deep enough team that you should be playing balls to the wall and with maximum effort every moment that you're on the floor. And when you start getting gassed, we're going to put somebody else in. But, to be pacing yourself through the course of the game, I think, again, he was directing that at Victor.
Yeah.
If I can read between the lines, that, they're going to be onto something. You've got a great, great player. Now, how do you maximize his greatness? I think that's the challenge at this point.
And I think we got to be careful, myself included, to, like I said, go hunting for criticisms of Victor. At the end of the day, he's got 34 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. I mean, he's got a historic triple-double line with 5 threes. It's never happened before, like 3 guys ever maybe. The first center to ever do that. And here we are, myself included, looking for things to nitpick. We all want him to dominate in the post, and he's just not going to do that. He's going to, although he had some really nice post moves last night, and he had a couple of fall-away jumpers.
They got him some mismatches on Malik Monk and on De'Aaron Fox, and they were able to kind of get that switch.
And Harrison Barnes was really adamant last night after the game about Victor is Victor, and we got to be careful not to want to make him Kareem or anybody else. He's going to play his style of ball. He's learning. He's open to learning. He watches a ton of film. He wants to get better, and so if he's going to take 9 threes in a game, we're going to have to live with that, although they have to be good shots. And Chuck and I joke, is the worst thing that can happen is he hits his first one. Because then he thinks they're all going to go in, but that's his game.
Yeah, I mean, those ones he hit in the first half were pure, man. Those things were not even barely touching the net. So those things were good no matter what. I mean, and he looks smooth, and when they leave his hand, everything looks good when it leaves his hand. I'm not saying he doesn't need to take more threes or, he needs to be playing around the basket a little bit more at this point. I mean, he's proven that, if he gets a wide open shot and he feels like they're going to go in, and especially if the first 2 or 3 go down, then of course it then becomes a heat check. But I think, to what Mitch Johnson was talking about last night, okay, this is what we've got. We've got a very skilled guy who's very tall. He's obviously a freakish athlete. How do we maximize and make the triple-double a quadruple-double next time if we can get the most out of him that we think we can get out of him?
Yeah.
Well said. So they're 11-9 now. They possibly, if they keep going on this trajectory, you said maybe trading somebody for a specialist. And we had kind of kicked that around this offseason, but now that we've seen that this team has clearly improved, that they do have some sort of cohesiveness, that they might be in the hunt for a play in or play off spot. Who's the odd man out in this rotation?
I don't know. You have so many. It would be a bad contract, and they really don't have any bad contracts.
Zach, maybe.
And so,
is the only one.
Yeah, you could get rid of Zach, but then they're thin up front. They've got Wemby, Bassey, and Mamu, and Collins, and that's it. So I don't know that, unless they can trade for a stretch 4 that can also guard inside, and that's just scatter shooting. That's just one. I don't know that they need to trade for a specialist. I just know that in today's NBA, maybe Wemby's the guy. I don't know. You're going to have to shoot and make a lot of threes to win every night.
You might need a Danny Green, someone like that.
Yeah, somebody like that.
Let's get on to UTSA here. They ended their season 6-6 after losing to Army this past weekend in a game that they were winning in the third quarter, actually winning in the fourth quarter, early on in the fourth quarter, and then it kind of all went to hell after that. They lost 29-24. Real quick postmortem before we look big picture about the program. I thought that the last 4 games were obviously their best games of the season. They played some of their best football in the last 4 games. Even the Tulsa game, they played really well. Excuse me, even though they didn't win that game. The 4th and 1 call that Jeff made at the beginning of the fourth quarter was really, I don't get it. I don't get it. As Don tries to spill his Diet Coke. 4th and 1, 16-yard, their own 16-yard line, and you don't get it. And the game's basically over after that. Army goes down and scores. Owen McCown throws a pick on the next possession. Army scores again. You have a chance. They score a touchdown, and then you have a chance to score at the end to win the game, and then Owen throws his third or second pick of the game. So kind of snowballed from there. But
Yeah.
What was your guys' thoughts? I know did you ask Jeff about that last night about his call?
Not on
Not on camera. Not on camera.
He takes responsibility for it. But look, he's like, hey, we're going in there. They're 10-1. We've already got our bowl win. Let's be aggressive. He says he regrets the call that he made, not going for it, but the play that he called. And
yeah, it was an inside zone basically.
All analytics, and believe it or not, analytics said go for it there. And they go with the analytics. And a lot of coaches go with the analytics. Now, for 100 years, that's insane to go for it on 4th and 1 in your own 16 because you always think of what's the worst possible outcome, not what's the best possible outcome. The best possible outcome is you get a first down on your own 16. That doesn't guarantee you anything on the next 3 downs to continue the drive. Now, you might. But the worst thing that can happen is you give them the ball inside your 20. So I would always punt the football there. And I was thinking that as I'm watching it. But I understand his mentality, where they were in the season, where they were on the road, what they were trying to establish. I think it cost them the game.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I think they can win that game if they punt that football away.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, they were leading by 1 point. It's early in the fourth quarter. I think it was literally the first play of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And it just didn't – I was watching it, and I was like, whoa. Especially because he called the punt team out first.
Yeah.
Punt team came out first, the quarter ends, and then he comes out with the offense. And I'm like, wait a second here.
He's done that.
We actually doing this? We're
he's
really
done
going to
that
let
a
this
few
happen?
times over his career here. He goes for it a lot. And, guys like Zachary Franklin and Oscar Cardenas have made him look like a hero.
Well, he went
few
for it early.
times.
He went for it earlier, 4th and 1, and Devin McEwen scored the touchdown. It was a 21-yard touchdown, 4th and 1. But it was on the opponent's 21-yard line. Like the field position matters there.
Sure.
And
Always
so-
on your own 16.
Yeah, I mean, so this game aside, season ends 6-6. I think that's the worst record in Jeff's tenure here, if I'm remembering that correctly. I think the previous worst record was 7-5. Chuck, how will you look back on this season for the UTSA Roadrunners?
I will look back at it as how the heck did they do that? I mean, again, we've talked about the injuries that they've had to the starters and to the depth and how they had to play differently for a couple games because they had no wide receivers and, they went with, heavy jumbo sets and all that and still managed to find a way to be not only competitive but win some games that they probably shouldn't have. I mean, to me, and I know we've talked about this before too, I don't know how that you can say that this isn't Jeff Traylor's best coaching job.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Given all of the things that went against them this year, the last thing I saw after the Tulsa game was them flipping this and running it the other way. That was, talk about best case scenario, worst case scenario. There's no way anybody would have envisioned them doing what they did to essentially run the table and then, basically have a possession, get away from them in the Army game from not, running the slate there at the end, given the competition. I mean, you beat a top 25 team. That was at your own home. This last weekend was against a top 25 team. And, he knows his team. It was tough sledding all day offensively. I'm sure his thought process was kind of like what Elko was thinking in College Station on the goal line. We haven't done anything all day on offense. This is our best chance to score. And maybe he was thinking this is our best chance to get a first down, run more clock, at least two more minutes is going to come off. There's a lot of things that go on to making that call, and yeah, it's a bad call when you don't get it, but certainly I can understand. And I kind of applaud the raw nature of saying, F it, let's just go for it and see if we can do it.
Yeah, they're 6-6. Here's the thing that I look back on. That's a 9-win team. The Rice game was won on a lucky catch on the last play of the game. The meltdown at Tulsa was because all 4 of your starting DBs got hurt, and you're playing walk-ons who've never played a snap before, and that snowballed on them. But they were way up in that game. East Carolina was a game that they could have easily won. And Army, they were competitive to show that they were competitive with Memphis and Army, with 12 starters out for the year, 18 starters out week to week. One would come back, the other would be out. And to do that without Oscar and without Joe Evans and without, you name it. 5 receivers, 4 starting offensive linemen, 4 starting defensive linemen, shows you, like, if they would have been healthy, what they could have been. Jeff said preseason He goes, I think we'll be 6-1 when we come here to play Memphis. And if we can get that one, we might be in the conversation for the playoff. That was preseason. So that's what he thought of his talent. And the fact that they were competitive with Memphis and Army with second and third string talent shows you if he can keep them, this program is built to last.
Not only that, I mean, those guys that were backups that were then thrust into starting roles, I think proved that they can play ball, right? I mean, so now think about what your depth looks like next year.
Let's take a listen to Coach Traylor last night on his overview of this season, starting with his thoughts on Owen McCown and how Frank Harris helped him in his conversation last night with Don Harris.
Frank was good for Owen. Owen got to be in the room with Frank, and he saw how Frank handles himself, and they were good for each other, and they're still very close to this day. I would also say Frank never had the injuries to all of his receivers. He at least had some of those guys out there. I would say Owen basically carried our team offensively most of the year because so many different pieces around him. But in the meantime, we got Amador back as a freshman. McEwen's a sophomore. Overmeyer's a freshman. Houston Thomas is a sophomore. Brandon High a sophomore. 4 of our offensive linemen are coming back. And our quarterback, we got 2 more years with him. So the future really is bright. And I am so proud of how my seniors, and those guys are all on defense, held us together and rallied here late in the season for our 5th consecutive bowl.
His draw always makes me laugh. A sophomore. I think he's right, though. I mean, Owen, I think out of this season, you found your quarterback. I don't think that last offseason they wanted to bring people in and they wanted to bring in competition. Owen won the job. I think that Owen had the job the entire time. That's just my opinion. I don't know if
he's different.
Yeah. And he doesn't need all of the NIL money because his dad has 16 years of NFL paychecks so he's fine. Like you want some money probably for your quarterback like that, but you don't need the $2 million, $3 million that Michigan is giving to this Underwood kid or anything like that to keep Owen around.
Or the $1,000 a month that a lot of these kids do need to eat.
Right.
He comes from that background. He also comes from a family where Jeff Traylor coached all of those dads and uncles in high school. So that family, that's the only reason he came here, was his relationship with Jeff after he transferred out of Colorado. So Jeff has told me that's the one guy that's not leaving.
Mm-hmm.
He's not leaving. He's with me. And so that's really good for UTSA.
Yeah. You also got to talking with Jeff about the revenue sharing aspect of this. And for people who don't know, in July, schools will now be able to pay students directly, and not just through collectives. You'll still be able to use collectives, but you'll be able to actually revenue share with your team up to a certain amount of money. And so you got into that a little bit with Jeff last night as well.
And I've had positive conversations with our administration. We are going to revenue share. I just don't know exactly what the number is yet, and signing day is coming up Wednesday. We're not going to have to pay top dollar to keep all of them, but we got to make it fair for those guys to stay here, or we're going to lose them. And I really don't want to be a AA or a AAA farm system just to develop players. I want to win championships here. Our city deserves it, and we know how it feels. We've seen it done, and we're so close to being there again.
So he explained what's happening, and I know people think they know what NIL does. I thought I knew what NIL is and all that, but you're right. July, there's a court case that is going to be determined, and it's not even close. It's going to allow member institutions to pay $11 million or less maximum to football players from the institution. Texas, A&M, Alabama, they're going to max that out. They have the money, and they're definitely going to give all $11 million a year. That's going to be their salary cap for their football team. For everybody else, you choose as an institution, how much are we going to dedicate to football? And Memphis and Temple and East Carolina are already saying 3 to 5. Memphis is going at 5 or something like that. UTSA's entire collective between 2-0 Inspired and all those guys, Bob Wills, their entire cap was $500,000. Memphis paid their quarterback $1 million this year, Shane Hennigan, $1 million. So that's what they're up against. So Jeff thinks with $2 or $3 million they can be in the game, but that money is going to have to come from Taylor Amy and the institution. And that's what he said. He's had some positive conversations. I think things are starting to turn where the university and administration is being more receptive to that way of thinking. But that's what it's going to be. It's going to be Yankees and Dodgers, in each conference. You're going to say, well, Memphis keeps winning the American. Why? Well, they've got a $5 million payroll, and you got a $500,000 payroll if you're, another institution. So that's what
Wild West continues, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, then you're talking about, when does Title IX lawsuits start happening? If the money's not being dispersed equally amongst the athletes or between the sports. I mean, I'm just really fascinated to see where it all goes. And the fact that there's very little oversight on any of this stuff is still just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, and UTSA is at that kind of turning point right now, right? Like either you're going to make a decision to invest in your football team or you're not.
Right.
You're going to make a decision to give Jeff the resources that he needs because pound for pound, he's one of the best coaches in the country, or you're not. And you're going to lose Jeff and you're going to be a farm system for the rest of the league or the rest of the country.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
Right? Or somebody in that league that probably doesn't need to be in that league. Charlotte, somebody like that. But,
Don't talk bad about Charlotte like that.
Karen Aston, women's basketball, all those are very happy about the revenue sharing because those kids are going to get money too. And football, just so you know, at UTSA is the only sport that operates in the black. They make money. Every other sport loses money.
But that's the story at a lot of Division
men's
I,
basketball,
Division II campuses.
men's basketball should make money.
Yeah, I mean,
Other men's basketball.
but that's the
programs.
story among a lot of colleges throughout the country. Like
Yeah.
that's how my college was. That most colleges make money in
football
football,
drives
and
the bus.
football pays for the rest of the sport.
But ASU basketball makes money.
ASU basketball
Men's
should be
basketball.
ranked this week, but that's besides the point.
I just want to ask you guys a question. When you're looking at like what UTSA is trying to do, what's an example of a team that did it successfully, that came up from, small ball or whatever and made it up to play with the big boys?
Them?
Boise, Central Florida.
James Madison this year or 2 years ago.
Who's that?
James Madison 2 years ago.
I think Boise's the best example.
I mean, UTSA too. I mean, it came up from nothing quicker than anybody that I can remember. And Texas State's doing a nice job too. And I don't know what the resources are there, but, they've become super competitive here the
Didn't
last
Central
couple
Florida
years.
with Blake Bortles like number 2 in the country? I think
remember that.
a few years back.
Blake Bortles.
Remember him?
Yeah, I have a funny story about him, but I'll save it for another day. Let's get to the Texas A&M. Excuse me, I have the hiccups. Texas A&M and Texas game. Longhorns beat the Aggies 17-7. They advanced the SEC title game. Excuse me, versus Georgia. Somebody else take care of this. What do you guys think of the game?
You need a straw.
I just need
Deep breaths through a straw cures it every time.
Or
Take your straw,
scare.
deep breaths. Suck
with
it in.
the water in here?
No, without the water. Suck in air. Hold it as long as
Guys,
you can.
tell
Let
me-
out. Repeat. It'll be gone.
All right, you were in College Station, check.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I mean, just the atmosphere was amazing. Just watching the core walking into the stadium, that was very, very cool. To see the fans behaving, all the tailgating that was going on. Aggies are the most friendly group of people that you're ever going to encounter. Didn't matter whose uniform you were wearing or, what you looked like. It was, come on in, have a drink, have some food. I mean, again, nobody throws a party. Nobody throws a tailgate like those Aggies.
They had
That
a
was
Longhorn
really, really
with
fun.
the horns on a spigot.
Well, I mean, you got to have some good,
Barbecue.
clean fun along the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What'd you get? Did you think the game lived up to the hype?
Yeah. I thought it was 34-0 football game.
Should have been.
I think Texas dominated the game. The running back, Wisner, is their fourth stringer, and that guy is shifty, man, and he's good for 7 yards a pop. Quinn made 2 big mistakes that made it interesting, which was fun because, nobody likes a blowout. But other than the block
Longhorns
punt
will like
and
the blowout.
the 2, Texas is inside the 20 right before the half to kick a field goal to go up 20-0. They missed that. They drive down early, and he throws the pick 6, and then they go down again, and he fumbles, and their defense has 2 goal line stands. In the trenches, it felt to me like it did the Georgia game, where Georgia was just big boy football and Texas couldn't match up. This was the exact opposite. Texas was big boys in the trenches, and A&M couldn't match up, which surprised me because I thought A&M's front four defensively has been as good as anybody in the country.
I think A&M's defense played well. It's just their offense couldn't help them at all. Marcel Reed did not have a good game. And Texas's defense might be the best in the country.
Yeah. To me, it was A&M's had problems all year stopping the run. I mean, there's gap integrity issues, I think. Not that they don't have good players, because I think they do. But, when you're giving up 4 and 5 yards a chunk every time minimum on offense, when you're giving it up on defense, I should say, and you can't get off the field. I was surprised as A&M's defense as a whole, I thought played really, really well considering how much they were on the field. And, I don't want to hang this all on Marcel Reed either. I thought, for the most part, to me, this kid looks the part. He doesn't get rattled. He took some vicious shots in that game. I think Elko is probably has a pretty good feel for what he has and what he needs going forward. They need to go get a bunch of receivers, this offseason, and I think they will. The tight end looks like he can really play, but, these guys need some help. And I don't know what the future for Marcel Reed is, but I really like that kid.
Yeah.
He sounds like a quarterback. He acts like a quarterback. He doesn't get rattled. The moments don't look too big for him. He made the one mistake on the interception I thought was a real rally killer early. But, again, we're talking about a teenager, and I don't know. I don't know what A&M's going to do, if they're going to grow him up in the system or if they're just going to go get, the hot guy at this school over here or that school over there and bring him in and pay him a load of dough. That's the easy fix nowadays. You can certainly do that, and they've certainly got the resources to do it.
Meanwhile, Texas, like you said, I think
they lose to Georgia twice and still make the CFP?
Oh, they're in.
Texas is in no matter what.
No matter what.
Even if they lose by 50.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're a 2-loss Texas at number 2. There's Miami losing, Alabama losing, Georgia struggling with Georgia Tech, Tennessee 10-2.
Arizona State 10-2.
Yeah, they're going to be if they lose to Georgia, they're still their resume.
Yeah,
is still going to be.
See, I think it's different for them because it's like if Texas wins, I think they're in for sure, and Georgia's out.
For sure.
I think Georgia would be out at that point because they would be a 3-loss SEC team. They would go with the Bamas and with the Ole Misses and with the rest of the 3-loss SEC teams.
Ole Miss or Alabama might jump them.
Yeah, if they lose to Texas.
Texas isn't getting jumped if they lose to Georgia.
I agree. All I know is that Arizona State's going to win the national championship.
And if not, if they lose,
Should have lost to Texas State.
if they lose in their
They didn't, though, Chuck.
No, they didn't. And then that's what they were trying to find themselves, too. I think, it's like Texas right now. Do you think Georgia's going to blow them out this time around? I don't think so.
No.
I
It'll
just
be a
think
far
we're talking,
different
Texas has learned how to pivot around their injuries, and they pivot around them very well. And nobody wants to give them credit for all their wins against Kentucky or the other fellow SEC school. The bottom line is they've handled their business.
Yeah.
And they've handled their business with the exception of one game to this point. And I would imagine they're going to handle their business against Georgia this time,
and
too.
they played really well in the second half against Georgia. They can match up with Georgia physically.
Carson Beck's has been
if
a
for some
disappointment,
reason
so.
your Arizona State Sun
Devils.
Devils lose in the championship
Let's
game.
not be crazy.
What is that? Big 12?
That's going to happen.
Yeah, like that's going to happen.
They're in the Big 12?
Yeah, Iowa State in the Big 12 championship
Okay,
game.
if they lose, they're coming here.
I know. I don't want them to lose, but I want to see. I wanted to go to the game.
then it's a win-win.
But
Yeah. And we're also a chance to have Deion Sanders and his kids here. And they're going to play in the bowl game.
if Arizona State is coming to the Alamo Dome, I'm going to need that day off, guys.
Fair enough.
It's a Saturday.
It's a night game.
Yeah, but
You're off anyway.
Yeah.
last thing on the way out. Bob, Broncos Browns tonight. Got a prediction?
I don't want to say what I'm thinking.
Shout out Tom Guerrero.
Yeah, Tom. Did you see that? Tom is in there. Tom is saying that, and this is what I wanted to bring up earlier. He's talking about the colors of the City Edition uniforms, and I don't know if you've weighed in yet, Czar, but these things are ugly. Just plain ugly. Am I wrong?
You had to get him started.
I've weighed in.
You had to get him started.
I've weighed in. They're awful. They're awful. How many teams use not only the team colors that are not in their color scheme, but bad colors like chocolate brown and baby blue and avocado green?
Speaking of which, last night, did you guys think that the Spurs were playing the Pistons?
I loved those Kings throwbacks.
No,
we're old
absolutely
enough.
not.
Chuck and I have talked about it. Those are the Kansas City Kings that we grew up with, man.
Those are bad, man.
It was weird though. It was like they were playing.
It was like they were playing the Pistons.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Anyway, that's all we got for today on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We'll be back to talk about the Broncos beating the Browns on Thursday and a lot of other stuff. Thanks, guys.
Kenny Smith, Sacramento Kings. The Otis Bird song, Sacramento Kings uniforms.
I like that you guys treated the Ohio State game like it never happened. That was good. Thank you.
How about that shit show?
Ryan Day is gone. I'm surprised he's still allowed in Columbus. They got to get him out.
If he wins the national championship, you can't fire him.
Yes, we can. The most important what?
The only reason he didn't get fired.
Listen, there's the Michigan game is more important than the national championship.
I know. So if I was the AD, I'd fire him today.
Yes.
And let somebody else coach him in the playoffs.
Yes.
Even if you don't win the championship, nobody's going to say, we would have won the championship had we had Ryan Day.
Just get rid of him.
Yeah, that's awful.